Tell me what's your point of view? What's your point of view? Tell me what's your point of view? It is your view. Point of view. Point of view. What's your point of view? It's time to hear from you. Welcome to Point of View. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in. We are here in the Visions Video Studio. I am here with my brother, my friend, Butch Ulysses Slaughter. How are you doing today?
I'm doing it very well, and I'm always so happy to sit in the presence of you and that brother behind the camera over there.
It is a pleasure to have you with your knowledge, your experience. We know it's just good to be in the presence of people who are aware and conscious.
Thank you so much.
And you know, nowadays, being aware and conscious, but that's a whole nother show. That's a whole different show. Today we're going to talk about forgiveness. You have a book about forgiveness, so just talk to us about your book.
I have a book that's called Forgive, the New Mantra and Practice for Black Men.
All right.
All right, and so the book is a compilation of essays that I put together that honor black men who influenced me over the course of, 5 decades. I'm 53. Over the course of 5 decades, Amanda, to approach, engage forgiveness at the deepest levels possible. Now, I didn't know that that's what these men were feeding me. And I didn't know a lot of these men and never will know a lot of these men personally, like face to face. These are men that like Stevie Wonder, for example, men like Marvin Gaye, men like Gil Scott-Heron, Malcolm X, Edward Robinson, who's a historian from Philadelphia. These men, in their posture, in their dignity, in their righteousness, had messages that I would listen to, and I wasn't always listening to these messages thinking about forgiving. But I learned how to sing their songs. I could recite their poems. I could, I knew the passages out of their books, but it never dawned on me that I was actually feeding myself lines of forgiveness. And by the time I got to the point where I was ready to write a book about forgiveness, I thought to myself, wow, this has been going on for a very long time. I've been seeded with forgiveness for a very long time. And so that's what the book is about.
See, now you got Stevie Wonder songs playing in my head.
Look, Stevie,
I just
look.
Call
Okay. Well, I ain't going to try to sing. That ain't this show, the karaoke show.
The karaoke show, you got to come back for that one.
Right.
But just, to hear you saying it, I can just see the things that each one of them could have touched on based on their stories and their presentation.
Right.
So that I just, it makes me think, just even you just sharing the piece of it. But why did you want to go ahead and put it in the book?
When I was 12 years old, my father shot and killed my mother, Clarice. I was in the house. I was a witness to this. So I wound up having to testify against my father as the chief witness. At the age of 12, I'm sitting there, in the courtroom telling people what I remembered hearing and what I saw. And it was a very, very frustrating, painful period of life for me. To have my father taken to jail, to have my mother buried, it was tough. And so I went through years, literal decades, Amanda, of frustration. There were things that would happen in my life, and I would remember my parents were never around to see these things. The births of my children, my successes, any awards I would get, they were never around. And I used to think when I was younger that I had forgiven my father. Like coming out of high school, I thought that I had forgiven my father. We would engage one another every now and then. And it seemed to me the more success I was having in life, the more angry I got about the fact that my parents were not around to see it. And when I thought about why they were not around to see it, my anger toward my father grew immensely. So before I wrote Forgive, the New Mantra and Practice for Black Men, I actually wrote another book called Dear Daddy, I Hate You.
That was a heavy one.
Dear Daddy, I Hate You, Letters to My Mother's Killer. And it was a collection of letters that I wrote to my father before he passed away to let him know what I had been through, what I was going through. And I'm glad that was not the last book that I wrote. So I needed a way. That book helped me to clear my system. Dear Daddy book I'm talking about. That one helped me to clear my system of a lot of real deep anguish. because I believe that if I had not gone really deep, really confronted the anguish and the rage and the frustration, that I would not be able to clear myself out. I use the term constipation a lot of the times. I always say, I was full of hate. I mean, I was just all bound up with hatred and rage. And to be able to rewrite the story of my father, to be able to reconcile, forgive my father and forgive myself, was major. And my book points to that possibility and the actuality in the end.
That just the experience is kudos, because to go from dear daddy I hate you to forgive, was that just you applying yourself to move in that direction, or did you get help? How did you bridge? How can you bridge those two? Because they like two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, but they definitely are connected. And so there was a way that I never wanted to feel what I felt about my father. I don't think any child wants to feel anger, hatred, rage about one of their parents, right? And so wanting another reality with my father, with my mother, was really frustrating. And that is where most of the anguish came from, is because I could not figure out how to cross that bridge from hatred, rage, into the land of forgiving. I didn't know how to do it. And I wasn't even sure if it was the thing to do. It didn't seem logical. How do you forgive somebody for killing your mother? How do you do that? And so, as I said, if it were not for, I think it was the birth of my youngest son, Octavius, is really what kicked it off for me. And I'll tell that story another time, but it was in understanding that my mother would not want me to be the kind of man that I was developing into. My children deserved a better father than I had been. Now, I'm not a bad dad at all. I don't think so. We'll let them say. But I didn't want my children to see me as a weakling. I wouldn't want to be living my mother's memory with rage and anger. It just didn't make sense. And I did not want my father to go without a second chance. I think everybody should have a second chance. Now, some people can get real religious with this. With all due respect, that's not where I'm coming from. Maybe there's some religious stuff in there for some people. But there's a very deep, basic sense of life without religion that I think we get access to. We get access to something, more power, as a result of forgiving. So I gave all that stuff up. And in return, I was emptied in a way that I could accept my father back into my life, and he could accept me back into his.
So would you say that release is required in forgiveness?
I do believe it is. So when we talk about forgiving, if we just break the word down, there are things that are forgiving, right? And so they are forgiving. And so one of my favorite prayers I learned when I was in 7th grade, just months after my mother passed away, and it's called the Prayer of St. Francis. And there's a part in it that says, "It is in pardoning that we are pardoned." So it is when we pardon other people that we get pardoned. And there's a connection between us all, right?
Yes.
It's not like I'm living on an island. I don't live on planet Earth by myself.
Right.
I'm with other people. And when I get an opportunity to pardon other people, I free myself. When I let go, right, when I give up, then that thing that has had us bound is broken. So, it's a real body feeling. I mean, to have the headaches that I used to have the nightmares and the anger and to let go of that is important. And I'm glad I was able to let it go.
That's amazing, because there's a lot of people that you are helping with the book, because they don't know how to let go,
right?
Forgive,
right?
So we're gonna take a break, and we'll be right back right after this.
So I went to his house, and I asked somebody to knock on his door.
Someone rang my bell. I buzzed the bell, person came in. It was a woman who I'd never seen before. And she introduced herself. And I said, okay, what's the nature of your visit? Well, your son is here. I said, well, tell him to come in. So she left. And she came back, rang the bell again. He wasn't with her. And she said, it would probably be better, he feels, if he would come outside.
My father came out.
I'm walking toward him, and once I get within maybe 10 or 12 feet, he says, stop abruptly. And I says, okay. He said, just stand there. And I stood there. And this went on for about maybe 30 seconds.
I just knew I was going to kick his ass.
The look I got, it was a glare. It was a glare. It wasn't a smile. It was really a glare, like he was looking through me. And he got back in the car and drove off. And I hastily, went back to my apartment.
It's time to hear from you. Welcome to Point of Hey everybody, welcome back. We are here in the studio with Ulysses, Butch Slaughter. We were talking about forgiveness and the process and how he got from the book Dear Daddy, I Hate You to the book Forgive, bridging that. And it's not an easy thing, it's a process. But if someone just getting from Dear Daddy, I Hate You, how do they start to move towards that book, Forgive?
Right. I think you have to ask yourself you have to be honest with yourself about some things. You have to be honest about how you felt and how you feel about what transpired, right? You can't, people talk about, doing what they call the spiritual overpass or the spiritual bypass. So it's like, I'm just going to give it all up to God. Yeah, no, you ain't. Because he's going to give it right back to you. If you ain't done with it, he's going to give it right back to you. And so the idea of really confronting the matter as deeply as possible is step one. You gotta look it in the face. That's what a confrontation is. You gotta look it in the face. And then you gotta ask yourself, well, what do I really want? When I asked myself about my father, the guy who I used to see as a villain, a murderer, when I thought about that, I didn't want that with my father. As bad as it had been with him, Amanda, I didn't want that with my father. And my mother used to say this, Amanda. I used to ask my mother when I was little. I was like a little boy, 10, 11 years old. I used to say, Mom, when will I be old enough to fight Daddy? I used to ask her that all the time. They get into these fights, and that would be my question. Right. And her thing was, you will never be old enough to fight your father. I want you to be a better man. Now I'm 10, 11 years old. I'm like, whatever. Nobody trying to hear that. Right. And what did it mean to be a better man? Now, she didn't tell me I was better. She said, I want you to be a better man, which means I have a choice. And she never said I was better than my father, which is important also, because I could go that way too. There's this thing where people say if you've experienced a particular thing when you were young, you're likely to do the same thing. And so my mother said, be a better man. And so as I got older and I started to think about what that would mean to be a better man, and this is a process, I thought being a better man means forgiving my father. Forgiving my father doesn't just mean I forgive you. Ultimately, what it meant for me was reconciliation, which for me is a step above forgiveness. Forgiveness you can say with your mouth. Reconciliation you must do with your body, your heart, your mind. So reconciliation, to reconcile with my father, I always use the definition, that's to reestablish coherent equilibrium in a relationship. I brought my father into my house. He met my children. I wanted to restart. And as I tell people, if God can put a sun in the sky, I can forgive this man. So I was able to do that, and my whole life changed. The whole thing changed because I had confronted the thing that I thought had destroyed me. My mother's voice was re-elevated. Everybody was reset. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so when I knew that I was able to do that, when I could see that I could do that, you couldn't tell me I can't do anything at this point, Amanda. And I think that that's what's important about the forgiving thing. It gives people an opportunity to override the thing that at one point was keeping them down. You can take control of it. So it's one other thing. So one of the things that me and my mother used to listen to, we used to listen to Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
You know, so one of my phrases from Stevie Wonder comes from his song called "As."
Okay.
It's on the Songs of the Key of Life album. And there's this line in the song where he says, "We all know sometimes life's hates and troubles can make you wish you were born in another time and space. But you can bet your life in that and twice as double that God knew exactly where he wanted you to be placed." Now, when I used to listen to this back then, I'd be like, "Shut up, Stevie. Ain't nobody trying to hear that." And then as I started to embody and to take on who I wanted to be, I thought, you know what? God called me to do that. God called me to be an example of that. God said, "Here, I'm going to give you an opportunity to totally rewrite this notion about forgiving and death and murder. How you up to the task?" And I used to be like, "Nah, I found somebody else." And then I decided, okay, nah, that's mine. That's for me to do. So it's, again, this is me talking on the other side of the experience. So for everybody that's on the other side, it's like, please shut up, believe me. I've been there. I've been on that side, but I'm telling you, it's so much more beautiful on this side. So take your time. You know, you don't have to do anything, but as that one cook used to say, I guarantee that on this side, you will find more life, more love, and more possibilities.
Well, you kind of hit me below the belt with the forgiveness versus reconciliation. Because I think about times where you say, you know what, I forgive you, meaning, you know,
Right.
we could be cordial,
Right.
but I'm not going to really interact
Right.
with you.
Right. Yeah. Because, I mean, and everybody can't do it. Everybody can't do it. Amanda, before I forgave my father, people would say, you know, you're going to have to forgive him one day. When I forgave my father, the same people were like, how could you forgive him?
Wow.
So why am I listening to y'all? You know what I'm saying?
Flipped it over.
Yeah. You the same person that said, I got to do it. And when I did it, you told me, how could I do it? So this is really the individual's journey is really important. You got to know who you are, what you want, what you're capable of. And you got to know that you really are capable of anything. And you got to know it ain't going to be easy. But if everybody could do it, we'd be living in a different world right now.
If it was easy, everybody would do it.
That's correct.
Well, as usual, your conversations are always enlightening. I have to think about that, forgiveness versus reconciliation. Like, because some people don't realize, they think they really forgave, but they really haven't.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they see that person, they go the other way.
Absolutely. They're going to keep something in their pocket because they want to use it later to remind you that they hurt you, that you hurt them, right? And so the deeper form of this thing is to reestablish the relationship. And it ain't for everybody. It ain't always possible. But I think it's worth the try, because then it's like you get a chance to see what you're really made of, you know? Maybe the other person ain't made of it, but that's on them. They got to figure that one out. Are you made of that stuff? Try it.
So before we go, this is one common thing that we have to deal with people sometimes, especially with family members. So I'm going to give you a scenario. Just give me your thoughts before we go. So
This is a friend of yours?
Yeah.
This
I'm
a story?
asking for a
Okay, you're
friend.
asking for a friend.
I'm asking for a friend. But say somebody says, hey, can I borrow $30?
The old money one. Okay.
Because I see it so much. People be written on Facebook like, you know, you owe me money. Now you're going to roll up in a new car. But so it's just $30. And then they don't pay it back. But when you see them, they got an attitude with you.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, what did I do wrong? But I see it like so much. Like,
Right.
okay, it's not even about forgiveness at that point.
Right.
What is going on? But it is about forgiveness, because now I have to forgive you for how you're treating me because you did wrong to me.
Yeah, it's complicated. When people ask me hypotheticals, it can be complicated.
Yeah, I'm happy for a friend.
Yeah. So, but it can be complicated. But I will say this. I would say give without the expectation of getting it back. That's number one. And that's everything. Because if you're giving with the anticipation of getting it back, you ain't really
good
giving.
Answer. I knew you would have a good answer.
You're not really giving, you know. You're not giving. You are like you're lending, and you've got expectations attached to it. Give without expectation of anything in return. I'll start with that. And then remember that people are dealing with their own stuff. It ain't always about you. So when I see people that I haven't seen in a long time and they acting a little weird, I got to remember that ain't always about me. So if I got something going on inside of me that makes me wonder about them, then that's my thing. That ain't actually their thing.
Wow.
I might actually have a challenge myself, and I'm going to turn it back on them. And before you know it, it's like, it ain't me, it's you, it's me. Look, just stop. Stop. Find something else to do. Look,
Cut it, cut, just cut.
just go find something else to do. There's so much stuff out here to do.
Just reflect, just
Look,
redirect.
Just go find something else to do. And again, it's easier because some people just like to sit in the mud. Some people love to sit in the mud and throw mud at each other.
Mud pies.
Yeah, you don't have to play that game.
I liked your answer. Listen, you ain't got to deal with it. Because it may be you, may not be you, but either way, you still have a choice to move forward.
That's great. You got a choice.
And not be stuck in the mud.
That's right. Yep.
You have so much going on. You waiting to see you on the other TV. If somebody wanted to get in contact with
I
you,
like
wanted
this TV,
to.
by the way. This is good
thank
TV.
you.
This is the real stuff.
But I know that you have your books, and I'm sure there's somebody saying, I can relate and might want to get a copy of your book. How could they get in contact with you?
My website is my name. It's Ulysses, Ulyssess. My friends call me Butch. Only my
I call
friend.
him Butch.
She calls me Butch. Butch. UlyssesButchSlaughter@gmail.com is my email address. And it's also my website, UlyssesButchSlaughter.com. Go there. You can send me a message. You can send me, if you got a friend who needs to know something. Ask for a friend. I'd be happy to engage. And you can get the book at my website.
Awesome. Well, again, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me,
And
Amanda.
we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.
Take me back to where we were before. Summer 2012 was the best I ever known. 'Cause one of those days you came my way, made it hard to stay away. I felt the chemistry on it. Was it written on my face when you gave me a time and place and took me on the perfect date? Oh, look at how far we've come, far we've come, how far we've come, far we've come, and how far we've come, far we've come, how far we've come, far we've come. Yeah, we were really cute back then, but let's get to the truth. Back when it wasn't always easy, you did your best just to please me. And even when I gave you a hard time and couldn't tell you what was on my mind, oh, you were persistent. Made sure I knew what I'd be missing. How far we've come, far we've come, how far we've come, far we've come, and how far we've come, far we've come, how far we've come, far we've come. The naysayers, heartbreakers, debaters, and player haters will do what they will, but here we are still. The naysayers, heartbreakers, debaters, and player haters will do what they will, but here we are still. Look at how far we've come, far we've come, how far we've come.